profile. By the way, there is very nice reaction, this one, to those volumes. If you merge them, this is the point of control of the whole area. But I'll speak about this in a strategy section, alright? So let's just focus on the volume profile shapes. So after this thin profile, another thin profile gets printed, another downtrend, and after that there is another profile which sort of looks like a P-shaped profile, but the range isn't that big, and actually you can classify it as a D-shaped profile or as a P-shaped profile. This is not as clear, especially when the range is that tight. The next day there is a sort of thin profile, and afterwards the price goes downwards, the volumes are shifted downwards. There's a B-shaped profile, sign of sellers, another B-shaped profile, another sign of strong sellers. Then there's a rotation, D-shaped profile, sign of balanced market, and after that there is something that looks like a P-shaped profile, but it is not a P-shaped profile because the price is closing below 50% of the day. So this is not sign of strong buyers, alright? Because this is not a proper P-shaped profile. So what happens next is a balanced D-shaped profile, balanced market. After that, the price goes out of the balance into a P-shaped profile and then into a B-shaped profile. Afterwards, it goes into a balance. And what I wanted to show you is that this is what usually happens when there is a P and then there is a B. Usually the price is just rotating and creating one big D shape. Alright, so the volumes shift from upwards to downwards and then usually to the center. And if you merge those three profiles, then it creates one big D-shaped profile. Alright, one big balance in this area. This is a balanced market. Afterwards, the volumes start to shift. This is a thin profile, and then there is a D-shaped profile, which is a balance. And this is sort of confirmation of the trend development, because if there's a trend development like this, and then the price stays at the top of this price development and creates a D-shaped profile, then it is a confirmation that the market participants see those higher prices as a fair value. Alright, so the price will tend to return back to this area. So the next profile is a P-shaped profile, and it is a sign of strong buyers. Also, you can see the strong buyers. If you look at the price action, you can see that there is a strong rejection of lower prices. There's aggressivity in here, buyers defending their buying positions. So P-shaped profile. Afterwards, there is this weird profile. Hard to tell what it is. Looks like a P-shaped profile, but the price is closing at the low of it below the 50%, so it is not a P-shaped profile. So I wouldn't really classify this one as any sort of profile. What happens next is that there is a thin profile, or it sort of looks like a P-shaped profile. Alright, and this is a trend development, and afterwards you can see that the higher prices got accepted because there is a D-shaped profile, so those prices will likely to be a fair value prices. Those prices in this area are currently fair value prices. Fair value of the euro dollar. Alright, so D-shaped profile, another D-shaped profile. You can also merge those. And you see that this whole area is a one big D-shaped profile with point of control in here. From this point of control, strong selling activity starts, and there is a thin profile. Afterwards, a really small D-shaped profile, temporary balance between buyers and sellers. This is sort of weird look profile. I don't really know how to classify this one. The range is just too small, so not really any information in here. Afterwards, the price goes into a selling activity. There's a thin profile, another thin profile. And after that, there's a D-shaped profile, temporary balance between buyers and sellers, another one, another temporary balance between buyers and sellers. Then there is a B-shaped profile, which is not a B-shaped profile because the price is closing above the 50% line, so this is not a B-shaped profile. The price is shifting upwards. You can see that there is a P-shaped profile, which is a sign of buyers. And afterwards, there is this weird thin profile, which got printed when the price got upwards and then downwards. This is not really a profile which would tell you that there is a trend development, because there is not a trend development. The price just got upwards and downwards. Afterwards, there is this double distribution profile, which doesn't really tell you anything unless there is a D-shaped profile after it. If there was, then there was likely to be a rotation, alright? But there isn't a D-shaped profile after it, so it doesn't really tell us anything. Then another thin profile, price goes downwards and upwards, and it's basically the same case as in here when the price went upwards and downwards. This doesn't really tell us anything, in my opinion. Afterwards, there's a rotation, there's a D-shaped profile, then there is a sort of thin profile, but I wouldn't really classify it as a thin profile since the price doesn't really leave the range of this D-shaped profile, so it's more likely that the price will stay in a rotation, create another D-shaped profile, and you can actually merge those profiles, those three in a rotation, and you will see that there is one big D-shaped profile with point of control in here. Then there is a thin profile in here, and again a balance. So the higher prices got accepted, but there was a B-shaped profile in here, which is a sign of strong sellers. So you may want to think about looking for shorts in a case like that. As you can see, the price went downwards. This is a double distribution profile, but it doesn't really tell us anything in this case. Afterwards, there's a balance, D-shaped profile, and then there is a thin profile, or also sort of double distribution profile, but I would say that it's more like a thin profile, this one, because there is a trend behavior. After a trend, as usual, there's a rotation. So if after a trend you see a D-shaped profile like this, there'll likely be a rotation. So another D-shaped profile, and then there's a sign of buyers, because there is a B-shaped profile. What I meant is sellers. B-shaped profile is sellers, alright, not buyers. It's followed by a D-shaped profile, which adds to this whole rotation. And afterwards, a thin profile indicating a trend. After the trend, it's pretty usual that there is a D-shaped profile, which is a sign of temporary balance between buyers and sellers. This looks like a small B-shaped profile, a sign of sellers. This looks like a P-shaped profile, but it's not a P-shaped profile, and because the price closes below the 50% of the daily range. Afterwards, a thin profile and a P-shaped profile, which is a sign of strong buyers. And as you can see, afterwards the price is shifting upwards. The volumes are shifting upwards, this is sort of thin profile. There was more time to accumulate volumes in here, so that's why the thin profile is not as thin, but I would still classify it as a thin profile. Afterwards, another thin profile, strong buyers pushing the price upwards, and afterwards, rotation. The higher prices got accepted. Alright, so there's a temporary balance in here, and afterwards there's also this thin profile, but in this case it is an exception because this is not a trend. The price went upwards and downwards. But still, if you are trading this profile, then the price was going upwards, looked like a trend, then it returned and reacted to this significant volume cluster. So this was nice reaction to it, to the trend setup